Welcome everyone. Lovely to have you guys here. We just give everyone a moment to come on in. You are welcome to join us. Cameras on, cameras off, however you feel comfortable. We're excited to share things with you tonight. So I am joined by some incredible jewelers. We have the amazing Alice Kant. Give us a wave, Alice.
Hello.
And then we have the wonderful Emily Fletcher. They're in her workshop. We have the lovely Tori.
Yeah.
And of course, the awesome Ian.
Hello.
Yeah, so these guys have all completed diplomas with us at Jewelers Academy. They've all done different levels. Some of them have done multiples, some of them have just done individual ones. But we do this at least once every year to kind of just share a little bit of their perspective, their advice, their tips for you guys if you are either going to be joining a diploma this year with us, or if you're thinking of joining, then it's nice to get perspectives from students, I think, as well as, just hearing the information from us. And it's hard to pick students because there's so many incredible students, but these four are all lovely. So that's the first criteria, have to be lovely. All the students are lovely, but these four are ultra lovely. But also have done really inspiring things themselves and have quite unique and different journeys. And I think we've done a podcast with most of you guys. If not, we will be. So if you want to hear more about their journeys afterwards, you can check them out there as well. But today we're just going to be talking about their experience with the diploma and a bit about themselves. So we'll start with Alice and the diploma in silver jewellery, because that's kind of the first of the diplomas. Just also to say we don't have a metal clay graduate on because this is our first year running the metal clay one. So we're not going to focus on that one tonight, but if you do have any questions about it, you can of course ask away. Next year we'll have a metal clay graduate. But we're going to start because we have three kind of key diplomas other than the metal clay one, which is the diploma in silver jewelry, which is the first year, then the diploma in fine jewelry, which is the second year, and then finally the advanced jewelry diploma. And some people go through all of them, and some people come pick and choose at different parts. So welcome, Alice. Do you just want to share a little bit about your jewelry business, and why you decided to do the silver diploma?
Yeah, so I did the silver diploma a couple of years ago now. So it was 2021, 2022 year. I started making jewelry in the January and then found you guys and then very quickly signed up to the diploma. And my business started because I wanted to fund my way through the diploma, and then now it's grown from there and kept going. So yeah, it's I did the silver diploma, and then from there all of the jewelry that I still make now is still all based off of the techniques that I made. But my jewelry is a lot better than it was when I started, or even when I finished the diploma. But it's all still based off of everything that I learned during that year.
Awesome. And you're very humble, but you have your own jewelry shop, like a physical premises, don't you? And I feel like your business has grown so much, like you said, even since the diploma course, and you're doing more advanced things, you're working with gold more, doing lots of stone settings and all these things that, a lot of us really enjoy doing or would like to do. So it's awesome to watch your business grow. And what kind of advice would you give to somebody thinking about doing the diploma in silver jewelry? So they're probably quite fairly new to jewelry making, or maybe has been doing it for a little while and thinking, would this course be right for me?
Yeah, so I think like one thing that I've seen holding other people back, that I'm quite impulsive. So I seen that I wanted to do it and I just decided to do it. But one thing that I've seen other people holding other people back is the time aspect and the money aspect. With regards to time, I was still in a full-time job when I did it, and it was a lot to fit in. But if you really structure your time, it was like 2 nights a week for me, plus sometimes an extra few hours a weekend. But yeah, it is completely doable if you are really. I really wanted to do it. So if you really do want to do it, it is completely manageable. And then I also most months managed to cover the cost of the diploma with my jewellery making. In some months it was much better. In some months I probably had to put in a little bit, but it wasn't completely unachievable to do that as well. Yeah, and that's what really pushed me to grow my business to begin with at kind of that stage where it was a little bit scary to be selling jewellery. Yeah, and then by the end of the diploma, I was quite comfortable with my business, which was really good actually. I feel like that was not what I set out to do, but it was a good, yeah, a good thing that came from it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I always feel like, obviously these diplomas didn't exist when I started training, but I did a similar, like, put all the money I had into training and just thought, hopefully this will pay off. But I feel like it did make me quite hungry for, I need to make this work. I need to justify this. Like, I need to make sure my family don't think I've had a mental breakdown. Like, and there's something in that. And I mean, it's great if you have the income and you can just, you're at a stage in your life where you can just go for it. But for those that aren't, I think it's not necessarily a bad thing, to have that hunger of like, I don't know, if I have all of this and I need to make it. And I think that it can be a bit scary, but can actually really be a good motivator as well. Wonderful. We will come back to you in a bit, Alice, because I'm sure there's more to share. Tori, do you want to introduce yourself and tell us a bit about the diplomas you've done and why you chose to do them?
Yes, absolutely. So I've done all three now. So I started the Silver Diploma back in when it was in London Jewellery School. So I actually came down to London to do it. It was over a slightly shorter period of time, so I was okay travelling to do that. But I did have to spend 4 hours on a train every day to come and do it. I then went on and did the Fine when that was released. Was that 2021? 2 years ago.
Probably. I'm terrible with
A
dates.
couple of
So
years
like
ago.
a few years ago. Don't
And then
even
the
know what
advanced
date this year is, to be honest.
no, neither do I. So I wanted to do the Silver Diploma. I'd been doing like a night class back at home, and we'd sort of stalled a little bit in what we were learning, so we were just sort of going over the same things. And I wanted to learn something else, and I did go through a few projects and books and stuff, but I liked people sort of showing me how to do things. So I had a look at some courses. I'd already done a couple in London with some metal clay and some beading and stuff. And I thought, oh yeah, let's do that. So yeah, booked onto that. And then there was a course after that that was like an intensive advanced diploma back then.
Yes, I remember that.
Spent all of my money like traveling and eating out in London and living the wild life for that year. So I couldn't get the time off work, so I couldn't do it. And I was really gutted. So when the Fine came on, I was like this is amazing because I can just do it at home. I don't need to worry about traveling. I can do it in my own time. Like Alice said, like I was working full time then as well, so it was good to sort of like when I did the Silver, I had to take a set day off every week, which was fine, but it just gave me a lot more flexibility to be able to do it sort of around work. And then yeah, the advanced as well, which was also brilliant. So yeah, I learned so much over the few years. So
Absolutely, yeah. And it's been lovely having you in the community, and you've given so much back to us as well. And maybe you can tell us a bit, Tori, as well, before we move on about there's so many things we could talk about. Maybe some of your favorite projects or your favorite. I always like asking this one, your favorite and your worst project. So you've got the three diplomas to choose from. It's good to have a balanced perspective. Yeah.
So my favorite, that's probably, is that the easiest? I don't know. My favorite was probably in the advanced diploma. We did I've got favorites out of all of them. We did a brooch project with Catherine Richmond, and she taught us all of these different ways to do like patinas and stuff like that, and how to incorporate rivets, and it was all like cold connections, and there was so much scope. You could go quite big with it. It was just so much fun, and I really loved what I made. It was like one of those things where you've got it in your head and like it actually came out and worked. I was like, this is amazing. I loved it. In the Fine, it's the clustering at the end, because I think that like I mean, I wear it every day, and I'm just like, look what I made every day. It brings together all of the things that you've learned over the year. So I remember seeing the picture of it and just being like, there's no way I'm going to be able to make that. Absolutely no way in hell am I going to be able to make it. And I did, and I made it, and it's amazing. I love it. The silver one was slightly different. So we did enameling in that, and I loved that. Loved it so much. So much so that I've bought a kiln, and yeah, love enameling. I'm trying to avoid the least favorite one, aren't I? The
Least favorite of all three, if you had to choose one. I have a feeling I know what it is, but I don't know if you did this actually, because you didn't do the silver.
Yeah, no, I didn't get that one. I know which
For
one.
most people, it's the kite project, but I
Yeah.
think Tori managed to escape.
I didn't get that.
kite
No, I
project.
skated around that one.
Hmm.
Oh, I don't know which one. Oh, do you know what? It was the claw earrings in the fine, the first term of the fine. I thought I could solder. Turns out I learned how to solder doing those. There was a lot of like melted wire and stuff, but it taught me a lot. It was just really hard.
Yeah, that project. So for anyone who doesn't know all of the projects off by heart, which is probably most people, it's like two little basket or claw settings. So you can do like an oval or a pear shape, but you're just working with wire, lots of soldering. And I found people either loved or hated that one, in terms of like, some people just took to it and it was like, oh yeah, I can do this. And for others it was like, what are you doing to me? But yes, thank you, Tori. We'll come back to you in a little bit as well. Then Ian, welcome, Ian. Do you want to come and say hi and let everyone know what diplomas you did and why you decided to do them?
Indeed. Thanks. Yeah, so I did both the advanced and the fine before it. I came into jewellery through a completely unconventional route. So, as you can tell from my hair, I'm a little bit older than some people, and it's all gone white. But basically, I had a career in the pharmaceutical industry. Um, Long story short, mental breakdown, ended up coming across jewellery out of nowhere when I was in recovering. And that was back in around about 2018, 2019. I started making really simple sort of copper bits and pieces. And I did what most people do. I went and looked at YouTube and found a few things, but they didn't really gel. And then I came across Jewelers Academy. And I think it was just as you were starting to do this for the fine diploma the first time around. And I looked at the videos and I thought, wow, that's so much better than what I'm looking at. And it was the fact that it had both mentoring, a structure, and everything else. It just kind of all fitted. Initially, I was looking at doing the silver, but after discussion with Jess and one or two others, decided to go for the fine, knowing that it would be a rather steep learning curve, and it was a very steep learning curve. But it was a lot of fun. I'm lucky in the fact that I did the diplomas when I wasn't doing any other work. And it gave me the opportunity to really throw myself into it. But the one thing I would say is, and I'd echo what others have said, is that from a time perspective, it's completely manageable. I mean, I actually, my other main full-time job now is I'm a house husband. So I look after the house. So I'm busy doing that most of the time. But it's one of those things. It is a job. It is.
The home, the kids,
yeah.
the dogs.
Yeah. and basically, I sort of juggled it all around and managed it. I worked from my home studio, which was sort of set up, and it's been fabulous because it's taken me from really, and I'm not joking, I did nothing before this apart from making a copper spoon when I was about 16 at school, and it's taken me through, and the techniques are really clear, the videos are excellent, and the mentorship has been fabulous all the way through, and I've learned a lot as I've gone. So much so now that, I mean, like everybody else, I've sort of set up a business, but recently I got a slot at Goldsmiths North. So it's something that I don't think
very exciting.
It's very exciting. It's something there's no way I'd have been able to do that if I hadn't done these courses. It makes such a difference. So yeah, I mean, it's been a journey, but it's been a really good fun one.
Yeah, and I think, all of you guys have put so much work in as well, and we'll talk a bit more about that, because it's one thing signing up for the course, but then it's the the motivation, and when things go wrong, doing them again and all of that. Maybe Ian, you could share a little bit about your mentors and you know,
Yeah,
how that
I mean,
helps.
I think there's two parts to the mentorship. One of it is the distinct mentorship that you get within the course. So I had Barbara Yard in my first diploma in the fine, and then I had Hayley Kruger and Catherine Richmond in the second one. And everybody brings something different, but it's the touch point. It's the being able to go back and say, well, what did you think about this? How can I improve on that? Made such a difference. And it really came through when I was doing the advanced, in the fact that if I look at the stuff I did at the very beginning and I look at the stuff I did at the very end of the course, the sort of finish level was higher, the stone setting was better. And it's not just because of what's in the content, it's also the feedback as I was having the sort of mentoring meetings. And the other part to it, I'd say, is also sort of the peer-to-peer mentorship, because the sort of Facebook groups that develop over the time of the course are brilliant. If you've got a real problem, you just ask, and everybody's really nice about it. So there's no stupid questions, and it really does help a lot, because nearly everybody will encounter the same issues that you encounter, be it melting annoying baskets or making some really nice things. So it's one of those things that the Facebook groups are fantastic as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so nice to see how people gel in the groups and talk about the course, but then go on to talk about other things. Like when we came on just now, we were all talking about tools and what different things people are getting for their workshops. But it's just, I think what's nice is it's people on the same journey at the same time as you. So they're sort of thinking about the same thing. So if you're on a silver, there'll be people thinking like, should I get a pendant motor, or you know, should I get a rolling mill one day, like these. And then if you're on the fine, it's more like, well, I've got the pendant motor, so I'm thinking about this other thing. And you can have those kind of relevant discussions for your peer group, as well as like the kind of content of the course. But yeah, thanks, Ian. We'll come back in a moment. And last but not least, Emily, come and say hi and introduce yourself. And yeah, tell us what diplomas you did and why.
So I did the fine and the advanced. So I'd already been making jewellery. Well, I did a course about 15 years ago, but then took quite a long break. So I was I knew enough to be able to not do the silver diploma. Although, to be honest, I have been seeing some of the silver diploma content. I'm like, that's amazing. Like, I don't think I would have been able. Some of that I think is like as difficult as fine. But anyway, it's brilliant. So the fine, I think, sort of propelled me though, definitely so much more. Like Ian said, you know, you'd look at what you would thought you were going to make and you're like, there's no way, you know, I just can't do it. And that isn't imposter syndrome, that is genuine. I am not at that level and I can't do it. And it's amazing how the mentorship and the way the videos are done, because actually that was the other thing. Obviously my course that I'd done previously was in person, and I always had it in my head that I needed to do it in person, and in person was better. And I'd looked at degrees and coming down to London, and it just wasn't viable with a small family. So I'd done some of the free courses with the Jewellers Academy, and I just loved the way they were shot, how close up you got, which was actually better than in person, because in person you were all kind of huddled around one tutor. You couldn't even get a glimpse, you know, of that solder when it just flashes, things like that I think are really helpful when you're just starting out. So yeah, I did the fine. I had Stelios, I think, on the fine, and Hayley Kruger on the advanced, and like Ian was saying, they're amazing. What I enjoyed most is that they all bring something very slightly different. So the project that you do is generally a different tutor, and they'll bring something different to it, even just the way they pick up the solder. Because if you've only ever done it with one tutor before, you kind of have it ingrained in your head that there's one way to do something. And when you see other people doing it a different way, and you have that freedom, you go, there is nothing, you can't do anything wrong. It's just a different way to maybe the way somebody else does it. And once you've got that freedom, you relax into it and you think, what's the worst that can happen, you know? And it's all about experimenting, and you're allowed to push the way you do things and do things in a different way. the advanced was my favorite, but the fine, I think, took me further from where I was. So the advanced was just a really nice follow on. And they're hard in that you do have to set time to do them. But I was able to do it alongside a young family without having to pull any all-nighters. You know, it is doable, and you find the time to do it, don't you, if it's something that you want to do. Like Ali said, I was able to cover the cost of it every single month just from my sales. But that was mostly because doing the fine gave me the confidence to work more in gold. So all of a sudden, it didn't actually take many sales to have to, you know, cover your cost for the diploma. So yeah, there wasn't a month where I didn't cover it.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
well done.
Yeah. It was honestly amazing. I'm a bit gutted really that they've come to an end, but there is a point where you are actually meant to make a living from it.
Just do diplomas forever.
Okay, well, that's the other good thing though, because you've got access, lifetime access. I've actually gone back in because there was bits that I hated, if I'm honest, and I thought, I think I hate this because I don't feel good at it, but they've ended up being the most rewarding when I've then gone back and done it again. So actually 3 or 4 times of doing a baguette setting, suddenly you're like, oh, actually, I think I quite like this. So you go really from like a proper love-hate relationship with it. But yeah, having the lifetime access to it really helps. Because if you get behind, I guess, you know, if you're not bothered about the certification and you actually just want the course and the information, then you can get that and keep going back, can't you? So
it's a lot of information to retain as well, like as we work quite quickly through things. So you could spend, you know, 3 months on 1 week if you really explored it and did, you know, like you said, 4 baguette settings to keep going. And I think that's the great thing is the diploma is almost, you know, we weren't trying to replicate a degree, but it can almost replace like a really practical jewelry making degree. And the idea behind degree is you do it and then you've got the training you need for the rest of your career. I mean, I'm always learning, so I still go to classes all the time, and people are like, why do you go to classes? I'm like, because there's loads of different ways to do things and there's always new things to learn. And I think, you know, we're all lifelong learners. But I loved what you said, Emily, about learning from different people. That's always been my journey, and it's always been so important to me that I don't just have like one master who I follow, because sometimes the way our hands move are different, sometimes our eyesight is different, and someone might show you something and you just try and do it like 25 times and it doesn't work, and another person shows you and instantly you're like, I can do it that way. I can manage. And I think it helps make it a little bit more accessible as well to everyone. So go on then, Emily, what were your favorite and worst project? Maybe we'll go with the advanced because we've not talked about the advanced.
My favorite on the advanced, the catwalk piece, the Michael Malloy catwalk piece, that was using wood and brass and stones, rivets, glue.
Secret jewelers meant.
But it was just something completely different that was really, it sounds easier because it's not soldering, but it really wasn't. It's out of your comfort zone in a different way, but it enabled me to experiment with scale and things that were bigger, and it really enjoyed that. I mean, it's not my style of jewelry and it's not something that I've necessarily carried on, but it feels good to have that piece and know that I've made it, and I'm really proud of it. And the worst is the bangle. Ugh.
Oh, the hollow hinge bangle.
The hollow hinge bangle. Can you imagine making a hollow bangle, which is filled with sand to keep it hollow? You've then got to make your hinge 3 tiny little knuckles. Then, sorry if I'm putting anyone off here. Then you're making like a teeny tiny little mini box clasp thing to fit in it. I made that 3 times.
I do remember we were filming it, and I said to him earlier, I don't think anyone's going to like us after this project because it is very challenging, but amazing that you're able to do it, because these things are not, you know, they're not just the things that you would make and sell every day, especially on the advanced. It's like really challenging yourself technically. And I think one of the advantages of doing stuff like that is you're learning those skills of, I can do it even if it seems impossible. And when you go back to do something like make an engagement ring, you're like, this is easy compared to that. Whereas before that was quite challenging. So it's interesting to see how it kind of plays out. Wonderful. Yeah. Okay, we'll come back to you, Emily. Also, I've got lots of questions for these guys, but if any of you guys live have any questions that you want to ask anyone specifically, or to anyone, feel free to put them in the chat, and we can answer those too. Alice, do you want to tell us a bit about your experience of like the mentoring and the Facebook group? And because, you know, not everyone has the same relationship. I remember you saying you're like a little bit more of a watcher in the Facebook group. So
Yeah.
tell us a bit about your experience.
I was a bit of a lurker, I think. I don't think I wasn't, because I did have, like, it was so quickly that I went onto the diploma after like starting. I really felt like I didn't have much expertise to give anyone else, but you could kind of like watch out for other people asking similar questions. If you're not somebody that's like uber confident, if you think you're struggling with something, then no doubt that somebody else is struggling with it as well, and it would very quickly come up in the group and you could watch that way. And yeah, the one-on-one stuff is really good as well, just to get feedback. I think sometimes you almost know what your downfalls are, like when you're getting the feedback and things. And yeah, it's just you know, almost know when you're going into those sessions what you need advice on, so you can write down like a load of questions. And yeah, I think after it, the things that I'd been struggling with and I thought were my downfalls then ended up being things that I kind of were more comfortable with, which I think is kind of similar to some of the others as well. So yeah, it was really good.
Yeah, sometimes the things that you find the hardest, or this is definitely what I do, is I make it my mission to learn how to do that, and become slightly obsessed with the thing that's really hard, so that it's like you don't want to be beaten by a project, do you? If you're stubborn and you kind of think like, this will not defeat me, I will get through. And did we do I don't think we've done your favorite project.
No, and I was just thinking, because I joined you for this session last year, and I think my favorite, when I said it then, was a claw setting, because I was like, that was definitely my favorite because I was like super comfortable with it. But I have now gone back and like done flush settings again and again and again, and that's now my favorite. But I would have said that was one of the worst probably at this point last year. And my worst was the kite.
I think that's appropriate.
Yeah, my sewing is still not still not my favorite, but yeah, it was a challenge, and it is good to do all these things, even if you know it's not going to be your specific skill.
Yeah, and you can't be a master of everything, so it's actually nice to learn the things that you do want to explore more of, like if you're really into granulation or stone setting or working with gold or piercing, but then there might be others of those things that you're like, I don't want to do wax, or I don't want to do this. And I think being more specific is actually really helpful. Brilliant. And maybe I could ask any of you guys. It's exciting. I'll go with Ian. So you did the fine and you went to the advanced.
Yep.
Did you know you were going to do the advanced, or was there any like, I'm not sure? Because I imagine some people might be on the fine at the moment and thinking, should I join the advanced? Should I not? Or on the silver and thinking, should I join the fine? So maybe we can talk a bit about the transition and whether it was like yes, or whether there was a bit of a journey, and maybe some other.
That's a really good question. I mean, because obviously when I joined the fine, that was I know what I'm going into. This is going to be challenging but fun, and I want to see myself through to the end. When I was coming towards the end of the fine, I was thinking, and it was before you'd actually announced the advance, I was thinking, I want to do more. I want to do more of these things. How do I do it? And then you announced it, and I was like, oh, well, that answers my question. But it was also then sort of, am I in the right place to carry on and do another one? Or do I want to do some stuff of my own and then come back to it? But when I looked at what was actually in the course, it was the stuff I really wanted to do. So I was like, yeah, it probably took me all of about a day or 2 days, because I knew what value I'd got from the previous one, and I when I looked at the next one, you look at the projects and you go, oh, that's going to be fun, or that's going to be hard. Every single one has its own challenges. Every single one is doable, but they all have their own challenges. And I think that that's something that I learned from the Fine, that you're going to have good days and bad days, but going forward, there were lots of skills in there that I wanted to try and see where I went. And so for me, it was a bit of a no-brainer once I'd sort of had that do I or don't I discussion with myself mentally. But it was, I'm glad I did what I did, and I went sort of, yeah, absolutely, I'll come and do it. Because I think that it is one of those things that when I look back on it, again, I suppose starting off, I wasn't really knowing what I was going to get into doing it. And actually, some of the things I love doing now are from that course. So yeah, it seemed like a big decision at the time, but looking back in retrospect, I really shouldn't have thought about it personally, because it still got me to the skill level I needed to be at to do what I want to do. If that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. No, I love that. And maybe Tori and Emily could answer this as well, because I think the other question that I think would maybe come up is kind of, will it actually help my business? Like, I've already done a year, do I need to do another? And of course, you never need to do, you never need to do anything. You can do, people can learn really basic skills and have really successful businesses. But yeah, I don't know if either Emily or Tori or both want to share like their journey from one to another.
For me, it was a no, but I had to do the advanced. I just had to, like, a bit like Ian, it just felt like I just got going. I just got my momentum and I was loving it. And it just felt like a year wasn't enough. So I had to do the next one. And I think at that point as well, because you just sort of get used to, the cost every month, and it's just like, oh, I know I'm covering it. So if I'm already covering this, I'm going to still be able to keep covering it. And like Ian said, it's not like there's I thought there wasn't much else that I could learn skill-wise after the Fine, because there was so much in that. But actually the stone setting, that was another, and actually to try and do that individually, all those courses, and thinking about where those experts were in the country to be able to go and visit, like Scott, Vanilla Ink in Scotland, and I think there's Stephen Barnett down south. I couldn't go and do all those courses individually, and I knew that it worked well the way that I'd got a good mark in my so I knew that the way it was taught suited me. So to do the advanced, yeah, it was a no-brainer, and that took it to another level again. So yeah, I'm just waiting for your next one now. The advanced.
There are more things coming, I will say. Not another diploma. You can relax. there are more fun things coming, always.
Yeah, never stop.
We don't like to leave you guys high and dry, and I always want to learn new things. So this is my secret way of learning. I just get people to come and film, and then I get to see it all. Brilliant. Tori, I know your journey was it's a bit different because you had Silver and then a few years break, and maybe you can talk a bit about, if there are any times when you were like, oh, I'm not sure if I can. You did talk a little bit about, there was one that you couldn't do because of the logistics and the cost and stuff, but
yeah, I think I was actually the last person to sign up to this advanced because I was really like umming and ahhing about it. I really wanted to practice what I'd done on the Fine. I wanted to put a bit more thought into my business and stuff like that, and that was sort of holding me back from signing up. But I didn't want to miss out, and I didn't want to leave my friends behind. So I was with Emily and Ian, and like the little group that we had, I didn't want to leave them behind and be left out. So I was like, I'm gonna have to do it. I've got real FOMO.
Peer pressure into it.
And I am so glad I did, because I think as well, like having that gap, it was a long time between the Silver and the Fine, and it was nice to be able to practice things. But like then getting back into learning was a bit hard. So I think if I'd maybe had that break, I don't know if I might have gone back. Like I might have already sort of been out and just cracking on with what I was doing. Yeah, I'm so glad I just went with it. Yeah.
I think it's it really depends on the person, but it's so easy to say, I'll practice the stuff.
Yeah.
And then there's no investment, like there's no people checking in. And it depends, like some people can, like Alice did.
Yeah.
She did.
I've
Well,
said
she grew
that.
her business. She did an awesome job. But I know for me, I'm always like, I'll definitely do that when I get mine.
Yeah.
Definitely. But when there's not the pressure, it is, yeah, it's
There's a couple of people, a couple of names here that are on the Fine Diploma. So we're doing the tennis bracelet project at the moment. Um,
well
and
done.
I do sometimes use Ian as an example because Ian made 3 of them, just to like terrify people. But part of that is that we didn't set the stones in it, and I was like, oh, I'll do it in summer, and I've still not done it. And on these calls, I'm like, oh, maybe I'll do it, and I've still not done it. So I think keeping going, yeah, you've just got to do it.
The accountability definitely helps, and the
Yes,
peer
definitely.
pressure, you know, or we like to call it community.
Yeah,
Community / peer pressure.
Let me just add one other thing to that. The tennis
Yes.
bracelet. I love doing it. It was my love-hate project. I loved it after I finished it. At times I was beating my head against a brick wall. But going back to Tori's point about setting it, so I actually had mine set by somebody. And after doing the advanced diploma, I was like, I could have done a better job than he did. So it's one of those things that the setting piece, because we didn't do square stone setting, but then there's enough of the mechanics of how you do setting in the advanced that actually I think I probably could have done better. But yeah, that was
Does that
definitely my
mean,
love-hate
Ian,
piece.
that you're going to make another one and set it yourself?
So
Is that
yeah,
what
I
you're
was
saying?
thinking about that actually. But this time I won't use the wire solder which I accidentally left on my bench to try and make little loops.
No,
Because solder doesn't really work.
no, no.
Always label your solder.
Yeah, and I think, you know, something that's kind of coming out here is like all of these guys, like everyone, made mistakes, like big mistakes with their project. Lots of nodding, yeah, lots of big mistakes. And I think it can be so easy to look at people in the Facebook group and think, well, they're better than me. They, you know, they've got it all sorted. And I know one of the things that, you know, potentially could stop someone signing up for another year is they feel like, I'm not doing that well this year, I can't commit to another year. But I always say to people, like, that's our job, is to do the training. So, you know, all you need to do is show up and do your best. And it's okay if some projects you're just like, I never want to make that again, because there'll be the ones where you're like, I want to make 100 of these and I want to keep doing this for the rest of my life. And that's what it's really kind of all about, I suppose. Alice, I wanted to ask you a bit about the kit, like the tool, the material kits, and your experience with that, because especially for the Silver Diploma, as it gets more advanced, we get you guys to do more work with buying your own stuff. But for the Silver Diploma, there's a toolkit and a material kit. Did you get either of those? And what was your kind of experience with finding tools and materials?
So I got the material kit, but not the toolkit, because I wasn't sure, money wise. I was quite terrified of getting it all, but I did still have to get it. So I don't know where the in there, but I had to buy the tools myself. But I think that was kind of quite good for learning a little bit about the tools. But I don't think at that point I had any clue about materials and understanding, like, yeah, the thickness of the sheet that you needed and things. Like, that would have like been far too much for me at the very start. So I'm really glad that I did that. That was really helpful. And it was like all backed up, wasn't it? So it's like so easy. Like, you just picked out the wheat and then you were there. Yeah. Whereas like now I probably I would be able to do it. But to begin with, I can remember looking at like jewelry suppliers and just thinking like, whoa, how do you know where to start? So yeah, that was really handy.
Yeah, I remember my first order from a jewelry supplier. I just ordered loads of silver wire and I had no idea what thickness to order. So I ordered 0.6, which is not very useful. It didn't get me, and I was like, what am I meant to do with this? I was doing like a wire wrapping book. This was a very, very long time ago. And I suddenly realized, like, I think I need to know more about this stuff before I order things, because our perception of what we need, and like you said, that's something you learn as you go along. But I think that's why it's great, especially for the Silver Diploma, to have the material kit, because it's already a steep learning curve with, you know, the making, that it's quite nice to be able to like focus on that too. Brilliant. There is a question, thank you guys, and it's could be for anyone, but I think probably for Emily. Can you say a bit more about how you were able to fund the course from jewelry sales? Was this via an Etsy shop, your own website, or sales to friends and family?
Yeah, so I've only just launched my website in October, so there was nothing from my website. I've had an Etsy shop for 6 years, so it was mostly from Etsy, and then I did some jewelry parties. So at Christmas, I'd had friends and family round. I think I'd taken nearly like £800 in one go there, so that was a big chunk. Mostly just Etsy sales though. I think I can't remember how much it was, you know, around £300 or something in my head. It was like I just need to make that every month. And then when you break it down with, actually that only needs to be 2 or 3 pieces a month that are either gold or a silver stacking ring with a little gold nugget on it. You know, it wasn't anything greatly technical that I was selling. It was basically just making whatever was quick and easy to bang out on Etsy, to get, you know, your sort of 30-40 pounds here and there, and it all added up pretty quickly. So yeah, it was just all mostly online.
Awesome. Thanks, Emily. Yeah, and I think I've seen 2 different ways people do it. It's either like they already have kind of an Etsy shop, or they're starting one, or a website, and they're selling kind of easy things to make that they can just whip up in their, you know, without taking too much time. Or the other way I've seen people do it is that they're just sharing the projects as they go, and people are like, can I have one of those? And they just make another one almost at the same time for them, and kind of sell, because you do need to submit your work to us, so you can't sell it straight away. You can sell it eventually, but you need to, we want to see it first. But yeah, and especially some of the more commercial projects, like, you know, like you said, I mean, like the stacking rings and things like that, where people can just make a quick decision. So it's quite interesting. I think there was a question as well about, you know, how much of the business stuff is covered, and we do touch on business topics definitely in all the diplomas, but it's not a business training course. But I think the way that it will help grow your business is through people seeing what you're making. It's through the growth of your portfolio that then people think, wow, Alice can make this now, I want one of those. And, you know, Tori can make tennis bracelets now, we're gonna get one from her, or whatever. So it's, and that's been my experience as well with, you know, when I make stuff and show it, people are like, can you make me one? Because often people don't really know what to order from us unless we show them. So I think that's an interesting one. Harv also says, Ian, that you do need to make another tennis bracelet. So apologies, it's been a stressful night for you. Tori, I was going to ask you, what was I going to ask you? Oh, about time management, because I think that's something we've touched on, but everyone has their different way of doing it. How did you manage to fit it in? Tori's like, don't ask me about this.
In the wrong person.
But that's good, because so someone who struggles with time management,
yeah.
How do you do, well, like, do you have specific days on the week? Do you miss some weeks and catch up? Like, obviously we know what we should do, but what works?
So going back, so like I said, I did the silver diploma, and that was on a Tuesday. I had to go there on Tuesday and do the work then. And so going into the fine diploma, I was like, oh, I'll just do that. I'll have a day for my jewellery. I'll do it that day. That, I think, on the first day went right out the window. You know, you're at home, you've got things going on around you. It's easy to get distracted. And I think I've found that I like to work on a few different projects at the same time. So, you know, if one, I need a little rest from one of them because it's not quite gone so well, I've got another one to work on, and I quite like to be in and out of different things. So I did leave some of the work, most of the work, till the end. So I don't.
Okay, be honest, Tori. It's a safe space.
The pressure of a deadline was brilliant. I got it all done. Slightly stressed towards the end, but yeah, I got it all done. Sometimes people need that deadline to get them going. It puts a bit of fire up here, doesn't it? I was slightly better on the advanced, and I did put some like scheduled in some making time, just like a couple of hours at the sort of like the end of my day. Just that's when I quite liked making. So I'd just sit down and I'll do a little bit here and there. I did still leave some of it to the end. I just like
That's
panic.
okay, because and I think we all work in different ways. Some of us are very methodical, and we can stick to things and we can work through each week. And a lot, we're creatives have very different brains sometimes.
Yeah.
Not all of them, but some of them. And I definitely find it hard. I like having time chunked out, but some days I'll chunk out the time and I'll sit down and just be like, nope, it's not happening today. And then randomly on like a Sunday evening, it's like, it's happening now. Just, when the creative energy comes. And I think, being flexible, being kind to yourself as you learn, however you learn. These are skills that aren't like in the diploma, but you learn as you go through something like this, because it is an intense training, especially if you do all 3 years. You're with us for a long time. Like a lot of these guys, you're in like a crew, you get to know each other really well. And there's a lot of other learning, I suppose, that happens in terms of how we manage ourselves as jewelers going forwards. What do we do when we're in the middle of a commission and it's gone wrong? What do we do when we face these challenges? And it's, I think, really supportive to have people there, especially if you're kind of like building something from scratch by yourself. Brilliant. Okay, I have 2 more questions for all of you. Same questions. I'll ask the question, then we'll go around. So the first one doesn't have to be diploma related at all, but just for you personally, what's the proudest moment of your jewelry careers, shall we call it, whatever you'd like to call it so far? And the second one is, if someone is signed up for a diploma, what would your tip be to help them get the most out of it based on your experience? So anyone want to go first, since I just threw those out there? I didn't tell these guys what I was going to ask them. I feel like Emily's ready. Go for it, Emily.
What was the first question?
Oh, what's your proudest moment in your jewelry business?
Oh my God, so many. Completing the fine diploma was probably the highlight, because then that led to other things. That led to getting onto the Great Northern Contemporary Craft Fair, which is, like Ian with his, they're quite hard to get on. It's not something I would have ever dreamt I could have got onto. So, and I do believe that was purely because I did the fine diploma. And what was the next one?
What tip would you give if someone signed up for a diploma or signing up for one to get the most out of it, or just, words of wisdom?
Groups, really use the Facebook groups, because there isn't any competition, and it's really nice. It's proper community, and it sounds so cliche, but it is community over competition. There's nobody, you're not competing with your peers, and it's lovely. And they're there when you're not doing the diploma, they're there, like me and Tori. There's WhatsApp messages, there's support that's outside of doing the diploma. Also, I think I've said this before, don't get too preoccupied with looking at what everybody's doing and judging yourself by that, and going, well, I've just seen Tori's done that bangle and mine's nowhere near. You can't do that. We're all there to learn. And if you're able to do it all, you wouldn't need to be there in the first place, would you? You'd already be past that point. Because it's hard, when you're looking at someone like Ian, and he's done 3 tennis bracelets, and I didn't even I think I made mine into a pair of earrings instead.
Ian set the standard high. Yeah.
And I make and get a pass. But yeah, if I was looking at Ian's and thinking, oh, well, I'm not good enough, then I would never have got to the stage that I did, where I'd completed the advance, because I'd have given up and gone, oh, I can't do it. I'm not as good as him. So don't get too preoccupied by other people's journey. You're on your own.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we all have our own strengths, and we all have different skills that we're bringing, even if we've never made jewelry before. Perhaps some people have done like model making, or just other transferable skills. So you never know, what other people's journey is. And I think you're right. As long as you're improving, you're showing up, you're doing the things, then, that's awesome. Brilliant. Tori, would you like to go next? Do you remember the 2 questions, or do you want? Do you want
So,
to
my proudest moment so far, I think, is getting my stuff in shops. Like that made me feel like a real a real jeweler.
You are a real jeweler. Yeah.
I thought like I never thought I'd see that. And yeah, that made me feel really, really proud. The advice, I think, kind of touches a little bit on what Emily said. Like, you are beginners in all of the projects. So if it's something you've never done before, don't beat yourself up if it's not perfect first time. You can do it again, but it doesn't need to be perfect first time. I think like I'm in the Facebook group for the Fine Diploma, and I do see a lot of people like, oh, it's not absolutely how it is in the video, and you know it probably won't be, but the next time you do it, you'll get better, and the next time you do it, you'll get better after that.
Yeah, absolutely. That being like patient with yourself and kind. And you know, I was thinking like recently my son is 6 and so he's at school and learning to read, and they spend years learning to read. Like, yeah, and no one would be like, you've not done it yet. It's been a week. You've not learned. Like, no one would ever dream of talking to a child that way. But when we're learning something new, we're like, I didn't get the tennis bracelet perfect in a week. And I think sometimes reframing some of those things as well can make a big difference. But yeah, you've done incredibly well, Tori, and all of you guys have, but I love hearing more about it. Alice, do you want to share your proudest moment and your tip for everyone?
Yeah. So I think my proudest moment is opening my little shop. It's like my happy place now. And yeah, and even though it's crazy, it's been open for a year and a half now, but I still am like, oh my God, I've got a shop. Kind of like, I can't believe that. And this is kind of not really a tip, but kind of just like, yeah, an observation. But
Wisdom from Alice.
yeah, one of the things that like I wouldn't have really thought of before I did the diploma was when you do each of the projects, like you think at the start, I can't even get my head around to guess how that would be done. Like I just have no idea. And then like at the end, it's like there's like an aha moment in every single course, or like 2 or 3 where you're just like, oh, that makes sense. And then actually at the end, I think it's learning the problem solving around it. Like now, if I look at something, I know that if I really think about it, I can work out how it's done. So yeah, that's kind of like a kind of a tip, kind of an observation.
That makes sense. It's kind of like developing your like jeweler's brain, I suppose. You start
Yeah.
looking at every piece and deconstructing it and thinking,
Mhm.
what setting is that? And how, you know, what material did they use and how did they. And you're right. I remember before I did my first ever jewelry class, I just had no clue. Like I didn't even
Yeah.
know what like that you use pliers. I was like, how are they going to teach me jewelry? Isn't that something that people do with machines? Like, and then I was like, wow, mind is blown. And then I think that happens again and again throughout the journey. So yeah, you described that really well. And last but not least, Ian, proudest moment and tip.
It's really difficult to define a single point. I think one of the proudest moments for me was actually this last year. A friend of mine from we swam Windermere together, and he turned around to me and said, "I really love the ring that you made back in last year. Can you make my engagement ring for us, please?" And it just blew me away because when I started all this, I never thought I'd be making engagement rings for people. And then afterwards, he asked me to make their wedding rings, and that's another one which is just like didn't expect that. I mean, but the thing I love more than anything else is making stuff that people love. And I mean, I've made stuff for my family, and it's just the ability to do those things is just fabulous. So I think for me, it's the actual. This is why most of the stuff I do is commissions because I love that interaction. I mean, I make stuff, and people look at it and go, "I like that, but could you do this with that?" And it's like, yeah, okay. And you just have to accept that sometimes when you make things, people aren't going to buy them, but they're really good for people to look at and go, "I love that," but so that's a hint, a tip as well as a best moment, I suppose. As far as, so what was the second one again? It was
It's like how to get the most out of the diploma or
yeah.
something, a tip.
So
Yeah.
everything everybody else has said, absolutely. I think one extra thing is, and I suppose it's building on a couple of the points that people have made, is apart from sort of committing time, and you need to make sure that you do. If you're like me and you've got like a billion things you try and do, it's sort of say, right, I'm going to sit down and do it here. If you're that kind of person, do that. Otherwise, your brain will explode. But I think the other thing is that going into it, I remember very clearly when I looked at the advanced diploma PDF, the first one he sent out, and I looked at the picture of the half eternity ring, and I looked at it and went, there is no way I'm ever going to be able to make that. And it's have a little bit of self-belief, but also accept the fact that, and I think it's Tori, you said that everybody's a beginner, or somebody said everybody's a beginner, and it's you really are. Going into these projects, not a single one of us knew how to do them. And you definitely won't get it right every time, first time. And you probably won't get it right every time, fifth or sixth time either on some of them. But you just work on it and it does come. I mean, God, when people say I made 3 tennis bracelets, I did. I only have 1 left. Because I had a loss of silver to melt down and make other things with. But it's one of those things that it's just have a bit of confidence, have a bit of belief in yourself. I mean, if I hadn't done the advanced course, I wouldn't have been able to make an eternity ring for my wife after we've been together for 30 years. So it's one of those things that it's just the castle setting we learned on the advanced course. That's what I made it with, and it's just a great thing to be able to do after committing to a few years of hard work.
I love that, Ian. Such a lovely story, and I think you really put the effort in as everyone did, and it's lovely for me to kind of see you guys and the journeys you've gone on, and and many more people here, and it's just awesome, and there's room for all of us. So thank you all so much for sharing. There was one final question which I can answer quickly from Pav, which is an interesting one, and we've had this come up a little bit more recently, was around going back to do the silver after having done like fine and advanced, which is quite interesting. But actually they do work they all work on their own, and the order is suggested because it builds up. But absolutely you can go back and kind of fill in gaps, and there's no rules. We'll let you do whichever order you like. I mean, generally speaking, we try and we just don't like people being on courses that are too hard for them, because then there's the potential that you won't enjoy it, and we want you to get the best out of it. But yeah, there's so much in the silver. I mean, I always say to people, the silver was the only one for like nearly a decade, so there weren't others. We only made the others because these guys were like, what are we going to do next? They're like, okay, quick, make some more diplomas. And also because we just love learning and offering more training to people who love learning as well. But definitely, whatever you feel inspired to do, go do it, and whatever order. And in a way, I mean, I'd say the advanced is harder than the fine, but it's more of a just like, if the fine was too, they kind of just go together in a way. It's like, it's hard to sometimes say what is hard, because for some people the smaller it is, the harder it is, and for other people the more solder joins, the harder. And but yeah, it's just been amazing to kind of watch you guys grow, and thank you so much for coming and sharing your experience. Should we just share like Instagrams in case anyone wants to have a chat afterwards? So Alice, where can people find you online, and also to come and follow you and see your awesome businesses? Where can people come find you?
So it's Alice Cant, which is my real name, is not a good business name. So it is Alice Catherine Jewellery, with Catherine with a C. Yeah.
Love it. Love both names. And Emily, what about you? Where can people find you online?
Okay, so I'm Emily Lisbeth Jewellery. So Lisbeth, not Lisabeth. I'll put it in the chat.
Awesome. Yes, thank you. And Tori?
I'm Tori Foster Jewellery.
Tori Foster Jewellery. Awesome. Pop them in the chat as well. It's definitely worth following these guys. They've been on the diplomas. They're lovely people. They're great to have a chat with. And Ian, I can see yours is in there as well. Share it with us as well.
Yeah, I'm Ian's_jewellery. Ian with 2 I's, Scottish spelling. S because I'm Ian Sainsbury. And if you want my website, it's iansainsbury.com.
Brilliant.
Just message me if you have any questions. More than happy.
Wonderful. Yeah, well, thank you. Thanks everyone for being here. And if you guys have any more questions about the diploma, I think there are various deadlines coming up. The 9th of Feb, which is in like 2 days, is crazy, is the deadline for the 18-month payment plan. That's for kind of new people joining diplomas. But if you're already on one, there is a deadline in early March. I'm trying to remember the exact date. I'm sure Anna Campbell will know it. She's in the chat with us, to kind of make that commitment as well. So have a look, ask any questions you need to, and then just go for it. We would love to kind of continue your training journey with you guys. So thanks again, and I'll see you guys on another session. Bye for now.